All right, Trial Mob. I know it's been a couple of days, but I wanted to make sure I got a little bit of extra information before I really touched base on this whole Warhammer Joytoy thing that's going on. But I think I finally have a little bit more of an extra update, so it's not just 100% sad news. And a couple of questions that I have for you guys, and I'm hoping you guys will answer for me because I do want to know what the community thinks. Because if I do start reaching out to Joytoy and Warhammer and all that stuff, I do want to have a little bit of the community's back on what I should be telling them. So please pay attention to everything that I ask. Let me know what you guys think, all right? So, Trial Mob, let's go ahead and break it down. All right, you guys. So by now, I'm sure you've already heard, but the big reveal, the big announcement of the 26th was really just some sad news. But basically, the Space Marines that we've been waiting for here on the stateside, or basically anywhere outside of China, will not be receiving any inventory whatsoever. So this is going to be a China exclusive, which is not necessarily a bad deal because I've been buying stuff from overseas that aren't necessarily sold here. But when things become specifically exclusive to a country, that means limited release, limited numbers. A lot of that gets eaten up by the local population first anyway. And if you do try to buy them as a secondary, in the secondary market, right, third party, they end up being incredibly pricey. And I wouldn't see why these wouldn't be. These are very hot topics that everybody absolutely wants and has been trying to get their hands on since Joytoy has been doing a lot here. Now, I did speak to people like Damon about this, and he is right about one thing. A lot of the information that we've been getting to you guys from people like Patrick, from people like Damon, from people like Rudy, a lot of that has been from the stuff that they've extrapolated out of China. So it makes sense that they really haven't made any of big official announcements worldwide because eventually it was going to be an exclusive. So that's just something that we're going to have to deal with. That's not to say that it might always be a China exclusive, but that's just to say that right now in this moment, that first wave is definitely going to be hard to get. And as far as I can tell, Joytoy doesn't really seem to make things later. So there's an initial release, maybe there's a re-up, just like a lot of toy lines do. And then after that, you're kind of out of luck. Now, I was holding off on making any real announcements about this. One, because I was extremely devastated. I've been covering this heavily just to finally find out that they're going to be next to potentially impossible to get. And I've been wanting to review these ones for you guys. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to be able to get my hands on it. But if you did watch Scallywags TV, you will have noticed that he himself sent out a couple emails, one to Games Workshop directly, and you can see what he said here. But ultimately, there was no real response from them about any of the exclusivity of the Space Marines. But he was directed to go and speak out with Joytoy directly and see if maybe they had any announcement that they wanted to make officially or an official statement through him. And they did, in fact, reply to him from Joytoy, and this was what they said. So the main thing that we want to pull from here is that Joytoy did not say that, yes, this is an exclusive period. They said currently only available in mainland China. Now, listen, this is a fairly big IP for them. If they're able to do this correctly and they're able to sell out completely, which we all know they are, and obviously people in mainland China and wherever it is that they're getting most of their feedback, emails from people like Skelly or potentially myself or any of you guys, there's a big chance that they're going to see that there is a huge fan base outside of mainland China that would love to get their hands on this. Now, this doesn't mean that this is going to be a perfect release in the future. And a lot of people have obviously complained that the sizing is just not 1/18 scale. Damon and I had a talk about this, and I wanted to actually bring it to you guys' attention and see what it is that you guys feel about this. So here's the deal. These are not 1/18 scale perfect. They should be at least like about 1.5 inches taller in order to be that scale, which means that they are not scaled properly, but they are bigger than, let's say, the normal Joytoy stuff, which is nice because at least they have some of that girth, some of that size, but they're not 1/18 scale. Now, here was my thing, and I realize that Damon is right about this, so it'll really be up to you guys. So let me explain. If they are smaller than the 1/18 scale that we are talking about, as you guys know, Joytoy does do a 1/24 scale, which means that they already have smaller figures. So as long as anything that they make Warhammer based is sized correctly to these guys, then technically it's a perfect scale, right? They could come out with a Cadian Trooper that's bigger than 1/24 scale, but smaller than 1/18 scale, but that could line up perfectly and we can have perfectly sized figures, and it wouldn't really be a big deal to me because, well, I would have perfectly scaled figures even if they don't scale perfectly with Joytoy. But the real thing that Damon was talking about, and I realized, like I said, that he was right, was that if we do that, we're no longer buying 1/18th scale, or we're not buying 1/24th scale, we're buying like 1/20th scale. So at the end of the day, even if they scale correctly within its own IP, outside of that, we're basically buying a new scale of figure. And I realize that that's a huge turnoff for me, because I've been trying to buy specifically either 1/12th scale, right, 6 inch, or 1/18th scale. And if I buy the Space Marine stuff, that means now I'm entering a new one that I won't be able to, let's say, put in the diorama together, because the Cadian troopers would be too short, and the orcs will be kind of weirdly sized, and the Tau will be so on and so forth. So, I don't know to what extent Joytoy is planning on doing this, but that is something to consider. And I do want to ask you guys, what do you guys think? Would you be willing to buy if it's a different scale altogether? If these are one-offs, doesn't matter? Or is scale that important that you guys don't want to make the purchase anymore? Now, with that said, I do want to move on to this next part right here. As you guys can tell, we did get a photo of the scaling, since we're still talking about that here, of what a Space Marine would look like on top of the Hurricane box. And as you can tell, it does look fairly big, but I wanted to get a very close comparison to what that size looks like. What does this size look like? What does it mean to be as big as you see it here on the Hurricane box? So I decided to go out and take my own photo. So this is a camel bot on top of that same space, more or less starting from the same part in the photo, as you can tell, slightly above the foot of the Hurricane model. And it comes all the way up to slightly above the logo in Chinese, the top left corner, which is basically where the Space Marine stands. So this right here is a Space Marine. Give or take a little bit. I'm sure the Camelbot's actually the slightest bit taller, because it does take up just the slightest bit more space. But if you own a Camelbot from the Acid Rain line series, or you've seen my reviews of all of these, where I do a lot of size comparisons, this is almost identical to the size that we're going to be getting for the Space Marine. So give or take, this is the size. So take that what you will. I really think they could have done something to finesse a little bit more height out of this. That would have been really nice, because the Camelbot does size up really nicely with everything else. And then switching over real quick, I just got the Glaucus Infiltrator, so I'm very happy about that. I'll be bringing out my review of that really soon. And then big shout out to Damon for helping me reach to the decision on what World War II set I was going to get, and I ended up getting the American Airborne Division. And man, just looking at these photos, the packaging that Joytoy has been using on certain figures, I know that they've been kind of changing it here and there, but I love the way this looks. This is absolutely epic. So I will hopefully be getting these reviews out to you guys soon. But I just got them in, and I do need to find time to do that for you guys. Alright, you guys, to make sure I wrap up this video correctly, I just want to recap. Joytoy is currently not bringing the Space Marines globally. It'll be a China exclusive only. Due to Scallywag's email, we are seeing that it's not confirmed that it will only stay an exclusive, so that means that there is a good chance in the future we will see them here in the States, potentially even at a different scale if people complain about it enough. So I'm not too worried really about buying that first set, but it is something to consider. And then if they do keep them at that same size, the non-true 1/18 size, do you care? If the rest of the IP is sized correctly to them, you'd be buying a brand new scale basically, but would you be willing to do that? Are you a big enough Warhammer fan? And then obviously, if the sizing isn't correct, is that something that you would be willing to pass up on? And obviously, do you hope that we do end up getting these ones in the States? All right, you guys, we'll break it down again later.